Okay, so
Nice.
it's not subtle.
No, let you know. You are being watched. Okay. So at 4:15, I can start.
All right. I'm going to, I'll be not actively engaged, but if you need anything, give a shout. I'll be in the area.
Sounds good. All right. I'm going to get my PowerPoint up and going again here for a second. Let me get this going. I just had it working. Let's see. And then I got to put it in share mode. All right. And there's a box there. All right. Would you give me a thumbs up if you can see that screen now? Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. So welcome to the core values in FLL. I know we got some FTC as well, but I was asked just as an FLL teacher, so I guess I could change that, but let's see. So my name is Erin Arno. I'm a 5th grade teacher. I've been teaching out here in Bethel since 2007. And I actually did start teaching. I did have a team in 2007, but they kind of just plopped it in my lap as a first-year teacher. I had no idea what I was doing. We didn't even have a robot built, but we went to the competition, just hung out and got to see what was going on. So I felt like I actually started coaching in 2018. I coach the Breakfast Club. So we've been, it's been some of the same kids for about 3 years now. Kind of consistently, because at our school we go up until 6th grade, and then 7th and 8th grade go on to the junior high. And some of the kids finally these last couple of years ask, can we keep our team together even though we're at a different school? So this is our 2nd year doing that. So I've had some kids now from 4th grade all the way through 8th grade this year. So it's been really excellent. Get to see how much they grow in that much time. So just really been enjoying it a lot this year already too. So this is kind of my agenda for our time together here. And so really I'm just going to go through what are the core values. What can you do during practices? What can you do at the competition? What can you do specifically at the judging session for core values? And then just some question and comments at the end. Hope I guess I don't get to hit my arrow. There we go. So just first of all, what are the core values? So again, these are really all through the FLL website. I really like this little graphic. I use it with my kids. It just is a little more friendly for some of my younger kids. This came from FLL tutorials. And I just liked it this way together because it's some of that we language. They kind of speak that affirmation and kind of just makes it a little more accessible to them of what it is that Lego robotics is really all about. So really with every practice, we try to kind of hone in on one of these together and focus on one of those skills for a practice. I'm going to kind of show you some ideas that how we do that in practices. So first of all, I'm just going to kind of go through some ideas. One of my goals is really to give you some things that you could go and take to practices right now, but then also kind of give you some ideas of things that you could, Google or do some more research on. There's so much really that you can do. I don't do all these things every single time. I don't even do all these things every single year. I kind of pick and choose depending on the kind of team I have and what kind of work we need. Sometimes you have teams that come together and they're like immediately cohesive and you barely have to do anything for teamwork. They just super get along. It's just like this magic chemical bond that they just have. And that's awesome and it's great. And then there's years where that is not the case at all. And they are at loggerheads all the time. And in those situations, it's really going to take a lot more direct instruction really on what is teamwork. And so here are some of the things that I've done when I've especially had teams that have not gotten along so easy and we've actually had to, just like we practice programming, we've actually had to practice core values. So I made it really specific part of our practice and letting them know today is a core values day. We're not even going to touch the robot. We're not going to touch the programs. We're not going to touch our project. Today we're talking about core values and we're working on that. So just that really is sometimes you have to have a section dedicated to we are just going to do core values today. So one of my first suggestions is just to pull out the core value rubric often with your team. for my younger kids especially, I really maybe will only go over one section of this rubric at a time. Like maybe one meeting we'll talk about inspiration, another one will really talk about teamwork, another one will talk about gracious professionalism. And I just really want to get them used to the wording and the phrasing of the rubric. So afterwards, when they see their scores, they really understand why they got the score that they did, and they can practice rating themselves. Like, where are we now? And what does the wording of the rubric say are indications of that we have met either accomplished or exemplary level of this. So I try to, every practice that I have, I bring out one of the rubrics. So one day we might look at the core values rubric and look at part of it. The next time we come to a practice, we review maybe the robot rubric. The next one we'll do the project rubric, and then we'll start all over again. So every meeting, we always are going over a rubric again. So we're making sure we're not missing anything. I think it's just as important to go through the core values as any of the others. A lot of times I'll have a team reporter. So during any specific meeting, I'll pick maybe 2 or 3 people and tell them, today you're going to be our core values reporter, and this is what you're looking for. You're looking for when our team, the inspiration part of the rubric. You're going to be watching specifically. Your job is to watch our team for instances and examples of this core value. So they're really taking some time to watch each other and be aware of themselves as they're going through the team. But part of that, I feel, though, is that's going to take a lot of modeling sometimes from the example of the core values. So a lot of times you have to tell them and stop, hey, look at that. What you guys were just doing, that's a great example of discovery. You took something new and we're applying it. So sometimes you really have to be specific with them and give them examples like, hey, look what just happened. Let's look at our rubric. I think this counts as, a exemplary example of this part of our core values. Just so they can start seeing that ahead of time. So when they do get to that judging session, they have some of that recall of, oh yeah, remember when our coach said that we did this, so they kind of take that on as ownership. But before they can, especially some of the younger kids, I'm thinking about my 4th graders, they might not understand what one of those examples is until you give them a few, and then they can start generating them themselves. Another way too, sometimes I pull out a sheet like this, ways to respond to a partner. And over here at the bottom too, I just put some other phrases that are really good to Google for some other examples. There's some good ones for some older kids. Like I said, especially discussion stems are usually generate some better phrases for like older high school kids. But they're really just examples of how to start sentences that promote teamwork. So really just, instead of a kid saying, no, that's a dumb idea, I don't want to do that, to teach them how to disagree. You don't have to agree with everybody, but they actually need the practice. They need the examples of how do you disagree with somebody? How are you going to how can you still be a team member and have these discussions with each other? So if you find that your team members are having a hard time having those discussions with each other, I would really recommend looking up some of these teamwork sentence frames, or sometimes they're called sentence stems, and I have a set of them out on the table. And when they start disagreeing with each other, I say, time out, pause. I need you to rephrase that, and I need you to use one of the partner phrases to restate that for me, and just get them into that mode of reminding themselves that this is how we talk to each other as a team. Something else I've done just from my own teacher background, when I've had an especially maybe hard team that they're just not really cohesive with each other, I've done what's called a morning meeting. And I don't expect you to be able to read all of this exactly, but this was just a really good article from responsiveclassrooms.org. And this is supposed to take about 10 minutes. It follows the same kind of pattern. You do some kind of greeting where everybody gets greeted by name, and this can be something really simple each time. Like one of my favorite greetings is we sit in a circle and we give everybody a high five next to us and say hello to them, or have like some kind of soft squishy ball. You say somebody's name across the room, you toss them the ball. They look at somebody else across the room, say their name, toss on the ball until everybody's been greeted and the ball has been tossed to everybody. We have some kind of sharing, like how are you doing? Something good that's happened this weekend, something bad that you want to share with us. What's your favorite ice cream? Doing a would you rather, would you rather have blue teeth or would you rather have blue hair? And just something to get them talking and just something fun and low stress that they can all participate in. A group activity, usually some kind of game. We do a lot of like rock, paper, scissors games, maybe a 4 corners where, you number the 4 corners 1 through 4. One student is standing in the middle of the room. They count up to 10 with their eyes closed and everybody moves to a different corner quietly. And the student who's counting, once they get to 10, they still have their eyes covered. They call out a number like 3. Whoever's standing in corner number 3 is out, and they have to sit down, and you play a couple rounds of that. Just some easy game that can be played that's just fun and gets them interacting with each other. And then to end the morning meeting, some kind of message of, here is our goal for the day. This is what we're going to work on. This would be a good time to introduce maybe what core value you want to focus on for that day. So again, sometimes this isn't completely necessary. If you've got a group of kids that are just like gung-ho ready to work on their project and work on their robot, and you can see that they are getting along well, you might not need this. This might not need to be part of a practice routine, but I've had years where we don't touch a Lego until we've gone through a morning meeting, and I can see that everyone's kind of calmed themselves down, they're ready to participate. So responsive classrooms is a great example of that. And if you just Google morning meetings, you can do morning meeting greetings, morning meeting sharing, morning meeting activity. You will get a bazillion ready to go resources for that. One thing I also like to do kind of near the end of the year, especially, is for them to really think about their teammates and to think about what they've contributed to the team. So I just give them a piece of paper with everybody's name on it, and they have to say something about their teammates, every single teammate that they appreciate about them and so how they contributed to the team. And at the end of the year, I usually print out their picture and I've typed up everything that their teammate has said, and I present that to them as like kind of an end of the year gift. Like, here's your picture. Here's what your teammates had to say to you. Or sometimes it's the team picture, but I've put what they've specifically have said about that teammate. It's just kind of a nice end of the year way to wrap up and say, that we are part of a team, everybody contributed, and just gets them to think about and appreciate their team members. And then also I've found sometimes the kids who are having the hardest time getting along, the kids that are having the hardest time jumping in, they really are just either not really digging the project, they're not really getting into the groove with the programming at all, and they just kind of feel stuck. I keep a running list of extra jobs that I need done, and sometimes I can just send them off and tell them, hey, I need you to go make some copies for me, or hey, can somebody help me sort this out? And just have a running list of things to get them busy again and get them engaged. And a lot of times that will calm down any disruptive behaviors. If they feel like they're contributing to the team, they have something to do, most likely they're going to feel a lot better about being there and participating with the team. And then again, back to what I said before, if you have kids that you can tell this team is not doing very well with core values, they're not really working together as a team, they're going to need a lot of modeling of what does it look like to talk to a team member, what does it look like to be a team member, and they're going to need some practice. And so I'm just going to go through some of the examples that I've either used as teamwork building in my classroom before, or judging session activities that I've seen over the years. Save Fred has been out there. It's very popular. I've never met a class or group of kids that don't like doing this one. So really, Save Fred is a little gummy worm. and he is lost out on the ocean, and that his little cup is supposed to be his boat, and it's capsized, and his life vest, which is a little gummy ring, is trapped underneath the boat. And so each team has a Fred, has a boat, and his gummy ring is trapped underneath, and they only have paper clips, and their goal is to work together as a team to get Fred back into his boat with his gummy ring around him. And really, just the point of it is for them to have fun and for them to have practice and time to work together as a team. But then it's really important afterwards to stop and maybe go through that rubric again. Maybe not the whole thing, especially for the younger kids, but maybe one part of the rubric, and say, okay, how did we do here? How did we do with this? How would you rate your team on this? And then if, they rated themselves kind of lower, it's like, okay, well, let's practice right now. What could we have said differently to have improved our score in that? So again, just like you wouldn't go to competition and try to run your robot for the first time on the table during competition, them going into the judging session should not be the first time that they practice some teamwork together. Helium stick is another very common one. It's just a very long tent pole. Everyone puts out their finger, and they just really everybody has to continuous contact with the tent pole the whole time, and they have to just be able to lift it up and down. And so that just takes a lot of communication with each other about when they're going to lift, when they're going to raise it back down again, and just keeping it balanced on their fingers. So that's a fun one. And again, it's not so important if they're accomplishing the task at all. It's about how they're communicating with each other. As soon as if it becomes an issue where the kids are yelling at each other or not working well, then it's time to pause, back it up, and give some modeling of, okay, let's have two people come up. Now, how can they talk to each other to give their ideas, and how can they respond to each other? So again, it might take a lot of modeling, or they might just be able to do this right off the bat. This activity we did a couple years ago. It was create your own country. The kids had 5 minutes, a piece of paper, and they said, you have 5 minutes to create your own country, and you need to give us a 1-minute presentation about as much information as you can about your country. Go. And so it was really good because they couldn't really discuss, they couldn't argue about what the name of the country was going to be a lot. They just had to pick something and run with it. So I think this is a really good activity to really help promote, hey, we don't always get our turn, and sometimes for the best of the team, we just got to go with it and do our best that way. And my team really loved this activity, and they just went nuts over it. But another one, silent statue. This is also called a tableau. Sometimes they'll be given a prompt, like in 5 minutes, you need to have a silent statue that depicts the scene of, and give them a scene, like an old lady trying to be helped across the street, or maybe of a baseball game or something. Like, give them some kind of scene, and they have 5 minutes. Everybody has to participate. And when the 5-minute timer goes off, they all have to freeze in their position. And then they discuss it afterwards of how they work together to create that. Team timeouts. Sometimes I just stop the entire practice and just say, we need a timeout. We pull out the board games maybe for 15, 20 minutes. If we're at the school and the gym's available, I'll go take them outside and let them run around the gym for a little bit. Sometimes we'll go outside to our school playground for a little bit. Sometimes they just need some time to play with each other in a non-structured way. And I've seen those moments when I've let my kids take those team timeouts. Those are some of the times when I've seen the best interactions between each other, where I can see them actually becoming friends, not just teammates, but really having a chance to interact with each other outside of this structured teamwork. And then sleepovers. Oh, I see a typo there. Sleepovers or lock-ins. Our competition is held at our school at site, so we don't travel for our qualifier. And for a lot of years, our kids were super bummed out because all these teams got to travel to our site and got to sleep in the schools on the cold floor, and they were so jealous. And so we finally said one year, okay, we'll we'll sleep over at the school as well. We'll have the same experience as all the teams, and it really started a tradition that has just kept carrying on. And they really could care less about the competition sometimes. They're just asking, when is the sleepover? When is the sleepover? They are just so excited about it. They have so much fun. We actually have it with the 2 other robotics teams here in Bethel. So it's 3 teams all together. We have one of our coaches is a male chaperone, and then there's 2 female chaperones, and we have 2 separate rooms, and we stay up and play in the gym till like 11 o'clock at night. We put a movie on the smart board, and we wake up super sore in the morning, and they think it's the best thing ever. So we've also had lock-ins before, like maybe we'll work super late into the night and letting them program and play before the competition. And we'll just keep, we'll be there till midnight, and we'll have popcorn and ice cream and games out for them to play. So the kids who do want to do competition stuff and programming can. Those who just want to play around and play tag in the gym can, and they just have a super good time. And they're just then super excited about robotics, because again, if they're happy with each other, if they're playing with each other, if they're friends with each other, it so helps that core value stuff, and having that unstructured kind of release valve time for them really, I have found, helps some of the most. So I wanted to stop there for just a moment. If anybody had any questions or comments on just that part of things for right now.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
The save Fred, the whole idea is you can't touch Fred, right? You can only
Correct.
touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you? So that's like as far as team building activities go. Do you have any others that you think would work well with a high school group, or that other teams there in Bethel have used?
Yeah. Let me. So have you? There's one. The ones that usually pop up the most are like that human tangle thing where everyone stands in and they have to like cross their arms and hold it. I found I don't like that personally as an adult. As a teenager, I wouldn't have liked it either. One of the ones that I have found that with older kids they really love, it's a cup stacking game. And where you have like a rubber band with strings coming out, and they have to stack them up from that way. I've seen it done on a larger scale where it's actually a 5-gallon bucket with ropes coming out, and they have to do the same thing. So I think with older, I would not try that with 4th graders, but I think some high schoolers would actually do a pretty good job of that one as well. I think any of the minute to win it games, if you ever Google any of those, if you have them into 2 teams, I think a minute to win it game could be an easy way to incorporate some team practice, that core value practice into every team meeting, because they're super fast. So like the ones where you have to, like 2 people have to move the balloon down the room, between their elbows or whatever. Any of those, like you have to blow up the balloon and let the balloon air out to blow the cups off the table would also be a good one. So I would just maybe even let the kids, especially at the high school age, I would even let the high school students, maybe give them the job of, hey, you need to come with a team building activity next week. Like they can even be assigned, like, hey, you're in charge of a minute to win it on this day, and you're going to do one on this day. And they could probably take over the leadership of that as well.
I got another question for you.
Go for it.
You mentioned having a list of jobs for the kids who aren't terribly engaged, who are kind of some busy work or some way to get them involved. Mm-hmm. Could you list off some more examples of those jobs that you have for them?
Yeah, so a lot of times, like I'll have them reorganize our toolbox. Let me see here on a second. I don't even know if I'm not sure even what screen is showing right now.
I can see both screens.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's fine. So I'll have our toolbox, like our different trays. I'll have them organize some of the trays. Sometimes I'll tell them we need a poster for competition, so I'll have them go work on that. As it gets closer as well, we start working on giving out little tokens and little favors to hand out to people. And a lot of times they're little handmade things. It's like, here, I need you to go make a couple of these. I've had them prep snack bags for competition before. Like I'll have out a big bag of cereal in little baggies and they have to fill them out. So when we get to competition, they've got snack baggies ready to go. I've had just like some little small cleaning jobs. Sometimes I'll tell them, I need somebody to go proofread some of the different skits from maybe somebody else is working on, or I need them to work on making a prop for the skit, something that they can, like, we need a microphone, go make some, go make these skit props for us. Sometimes it's doing some extra research, like, our report could use a little bit more about, we didn't get too far into this. Maybe you could go find a resource for us and report back, just so our report and our presentation is a little more robust. So yeah. And then for some of the younger kids too, like, it's really like, go make a copy for me, go take this to the office and someone in the office will be there and you can go get a copy made. Or could you, just sometimes they just need a small break, and I'll go ask them, hey, could you go ask the other coach down the hallway, down the other wing, if they have a 3x5 piece, just to let them take that break and walk and come back. So sometimes it's more for them to get a reset, and sometimes it's really, we have a list of things to do and they could start working on something to get us ready for competition. So, okay. All right. So I'm just going to move ahead then to our next section here, at competition. Things that you can do during a qualifier, during an actual day of matches. The first one really is just expectations ahead of time. I'm very clear with them, like very clear at the very beginning. It's in my parent newsletter ahead of time, what I expect from them at competition. And my number one rule is no electronics. They can have their cell phone with them to take pictures, but that is it. They're not, and with my younger kids, it's a little bit easier, but they don't have their iPads out. They don't have their phones out to text. If they want to take some pictures, they can, but they're not there to sit in the corner and listen to their music. They're not there to text all day. They're not there to play games on their phone by themselves. So really just setting them ahead of time, and especially letting the youngest kids know, this is what you should expect from the day. I do let them, I know some of my kids just need that break from the noise and the crowd. I'll tell them they can bring a book. They can bring something that they can do quietly, but something that's easy to put down and not an electronic. Yeah, and I'll go on. The next part, and this is part of the core values too, is just team identity. For a lot of years, we didn't order t-shirts. It's just something we never really got to. Once we started doing it, we like it. We're fortunate enough that we can, if we need to, we can raise a little bit of money to help out. We have parent volunteers help buy some of the shirts sometimes if we have kids that might not be able to afford. Those custom ink shirts can get pretty pricey sometimes, depending on what you're ordering. We always try to keep the, simplest design, one color if possible. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an ordered t-shirt. A lot of teams are just really good about dressing up the same way. Just something that when you come to competition, they can say, hey, look, those are all members of the same team. It just really helps kind of some of that team spirit as well. Some of the activities that I had listed on here. This was actually something that Vicki had sponsored. One of her teams had sponsored. Her FTC came to help our FLL competition. And they actually hosted a photo booth during the competition that kids could go off when they weren't at a match. They weren't presenting. They could go do a photo booth and take their pictures, and they had all these great props. It's something that your team could do, just even stop by at your booth so other teams can stop by and take do a selfie with some props about your project. So a lot of these are just ways that I try to plan activities for the competition that will encourage my team to go interact with other teams. So having a photo booth is an easy, kind of risk-free socially to say, hey, we have a photo booth, come take a photo. That's kind of an easy thing for our kids to do now. They're into taking selfies, they're into taking the pictures. It's way less threatening to say, hey, will you be my friend? Than will you be my friend? It's an easy way to start talking to people. So having a photo booth at your own station would be great. Something I'm going to try this year is I'm going to give all my kids a scavenger hunt that has things on there like, go find someone who did a project about plastic too, or go find a team that shirts are blue, go find a team that, having these different things set up, and they have to go find a team, talk to them, and have them initial the box. And I'll have a little prize for all the kids on my, any kid on my team that gets and goes and that gets the whole thing completed. Again, just a way to kind of give them a reason to go interact with other teams. Another thing is I always bring games for my team to play while we're working. When you're in that competition time, we've got this, one program that we really just got to lock down. Our presentations are over. Really, I might only have 2 or 3 kids working on that robot. I've got 8 other kids that are there and still need to have fun. So I have them bring card games. I have them bring things that they can invite other people, other teams into play. Even if they're just playing with each other, I'm super happy with that because they're interacting, they're having a good time. But just things for them to do that are not their electronics. They're not like shut away in their own little bubble. They're there to participate. And then giveaways, like having little tokens. Like one year we made all these little laminated cards that had different trash sayings. It was for the trash themed one. I can't remember what that one was, but we gave those away. And this year we're going to make little recycled plastic turtle tokens out of, like plastic bottle caps. So we're going to have all these little, craft things. Like I always think about them at Girl Scouts, like giveaway things. And so they can go up to another team and say, hey, we made this for you here, and has our little team logo on it. Or a lot of teams make excellent flyers, little half pieces of paper or a little brochure to give away to other teams, to tell them, here's our project, this is what we did, this is our team. That would be another really good extra jobs list for somebody. Here, create our team brochure that we can give out at competition. Again, just as a reason to let them go out and interact with other teams. And then actually in the judging session itself, when you guys are called in for the core value judging session, creating that core values poster. I know that some qualifiers require it, some do not. It's always just a good idea to have it anyway, because it really makes them think through how they've been using the core value. I apologize for the poor image quality on this one, but they have a lot of really good blueprints out there. If you do FLL core values poster, and if you've had a reporter for different parts of your practices, it really helps to keep track of that throughout the year. When I have a really young team, for a while I was doing nothing but 4th graders. I would help them keep track of it at the end of each day. I said, okay, hey, remember, Johnny told each other you guys were doing a good job. Let's write that down, and so we can remember it when we need to make our poster. So they're not trying to just like scramble at the last minute trying to think of ways that they've contributed. I've also, for my older kids, I've given this as homework where they've had to take it home and they've had to answer a question for each one of these. Like, how have you used this year what we've used in robotics practice? How have you used it outside of class? So it was something they did outside of practice that they had to bring back. And it made it the answers a little deeper, a little more meaningful, because it was kind of quiet in their own space and time. They had to really reflect on it before they brought it back. And then I would, before going into that judging session, I would kind of have a plan, like knowing who your leaders are, knowing who is going to speak up, knowing ahead of time, okay, if we have a disagreement, who on our team is the tiebreaker, knowing ahead of time who will be good at asking the quiet kids to speak up, like having someone who's like, pays attention to the rest of the group, saying, hey, your job is, if these 3 kids don't speak up, your job is to ask them, hey, we haven't heard from you. What do you think? So giving them kind of roles to play while they're in that judging session can really help them feel prepared for whatever gets thrown at them. But I think it's also super important for them to know that, they might go in there with their poster ready to explain everything that they've done this year. The judges give them an activity to do, and then their time runs out and they're gone, and they don't get a chance to really say all this other stuff that they were planning to say. And then it's okay, and it happens. A lot of times we'll bring our poster in and just set it right by the judges so they can see it. So even if they never get a chance to present the poster to the judges, at least the judges will have seen it was created. They might be able to read some of it during the judging session. And that really just to let the kids know, you just got to be flexible, and really they're not looking for a win in whatever activity you're doing. They're looking for teamwork, and being flexible is definitely a big part of the teamwork. So really just to kind of end with that is, to be good at teamwork, they need to practice teamwork. And again, you wouldn't go in and, present your project for the first time without practicing. I don't let them go into the judging session for the first time without practicing what that looks like and what it feels like, especially some of the younger kids who have never done it before. They can get a little nervous and really tend to hold back and not jump in and participate. Some of my older kids who've done, it's good for us to have a couple trial runs, a couple different practices ahead of time, and really go through the rubric then and say, okay, how would you have rated yourself? What could we do better? And but really just to, that they're there to have fun. And if they're not doing teamwork very well, you're going to need to model a lot of it, and especially how do we talk to each other. And they just need practice before they go in there. So it's not going to be an inherent skill. They call it soft skills in the business industry a lot, but really it's just, interacting social skills. And not every kid is going to come to the team with all those tools in their tool belt, with the ability to really succeed well here. So it's just, they're just going to need a little more help along the way. So that's really what I got right now. So again, I want to pause and stop for any comments. If anybody else out there has any of those teamwork ideas that you guys would like to share that maybe you've done before that has gone well, or any tips and tricks that you guys have found have worked, this would be a great time to jump in.
Hi, good afternoon. This may not be related to what you're saying right now, but we're here from Hooper Bay, and we do need kind of like a tote, if you have the travel tote for robotics. Any ideas or pictures that you have? That would be great to have if you do, because we will be 2 legs to go Anchorage. So
like to pack all your stuff in?
Yes,
to come into Anchorage. Yeah. Alex, did you have something to say? It looked like you had an idea there for a moment. Or
no, we're in Anchorage, so we just have a big plastic tote. It's maybe 2 feet by 3 feet, maybe a foot and a half deep, and it fits just about everything in it. But we're not traveling by airplane. I'd imagine you're going to want one of those Rubbermaid totes with the lid on it, and maybe even one that has a secure lid that has the clips on it. The action packer would be that's what I use on my camping trips. But I don't know what other teams use.
Is this for FLL or FTC?
I'm FTC.
Even better.
That's what I thought. I can chime in on that if you want.
Yeah.
Sorry, I heard tote, which is one of my favorite words. Ooh, packing. Yes, I am still here, kind of listening. Erin, you've been doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
I can weigh in on that because I used to travel from Casiglock to Bethel to Anchorage, and we even went down as far as St. Louis. Ended up with a lot of broken robots. So kind of refined the process. One thing that I would say is if possible, if you can take some of the stress off the weight on the wheels of the robot, we noticed a lot of just the drive motors ended up really just, I think the extra jostling. So sometimes we supported the drive train itself and put it up on blocks when inside a tote so that it wasn't putting extra force on those motors, if that makes sense. And then we actually ended up buying, and I can send a link, I'll find a link to it on Amazon, but one of those big, gigantic rolling tool, like contractor's chests. And it's larger than you need. A lot of teams will just do a square wooden box with wheels on it, and the robot fits in it exactly. But what we found is that these contractor chests are really great in the pit because you can also then, once your robot is out, you can store and tidy up and clean your pit. You can take all your bulky clothes and throw it into the contractor's chest and close the lid, use it as a bench that you can sit on. The handle is retractable, so it can get out of the way. And then we also could add in spare components, because if you're already going to have a heavy overweight piece of luggage, you might as well, at that point, like when we put on Alaska Air, we always had to pay $100 overweight no matter what, for whatever robot we packed. So we might as well use that. We would make duplicate components so that if one broke, we could swap one out, and we'd put those in there with it too. So it gave a lot of extra storage space. You wouldn't want to put anything that took up a ton of space in there. Or it was really heavy, so it wouldn't like jostle into it. But yeah, I'll find a link to that in Amazon and put it in. But we actually, at one point in LKSD, had 5 of those that we would just distribute to whatever FTC team was traveling. So it was a district-wide common practice at that point. And the other thing is, if you could, like if you have any arms that are swinging around or any loose things like that, I would actually disassemble, not entirely, but at least pop them off of the motor. Servo motors constantly had the shaft sheared right off of them in transport. So I would take and consider propping your robot up inside of the crate so that the frame of your robot is supporting the weight and not the motors and the shafts of the motors. And then also take any arms off for shipping. And then just bring spare motors. That's the... Yes, and I know a lot of teams use the wooden crate. You can go that route too and build your own. But yeah, we just really liked having our seat. It was like a bench to sit on then. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I went to Anchorage last weekend, and I keep on looking at the luggages and stuff like that, contractors, chest, whatever. So I was like, oh, which one is good? I don't know which one is good. It's like, I don't know regarding the like oversized thing going on. So it's like, but yeah, thank you for that idea, Vicky.
Sure, you're welcome.
And anything else? Any ideas that you guys have done for core value or team building that you guys have found has really worked for you in the past?
I would just like to add that I've actually done the cup stacking with the rubber band thing with 3rd through 6th, and give your little guys the chance. They actually are really good at figuring it out and doing it, and totally capable, and they love it.
I usually keep once I do it kind of at the beginning of the year, teamwork, I actually put it on the game shelf, and anytime they have some extra time, like I had one year, anytime we had indoor recess, they just wanted to play with the cups and see how hard they could stack them. So they really do love it.
I have put the link in the chat box if anyone was looking for that.
Thank you, Vicki. One of my problems is having kids just kind of there to hang out after school, and they're not terribly productive, and they're almost more just kind of distracting. And so I've tried just kind of giving them stuff to do. I've kind of got on my team captain and said, hey, give these guys something to do. I don't want to chase them off because I think they can contribute, but I feel like if I'm just telling them, hey, organize this bin of parts, they're going to think this is a drag and they're not going to come back. So I suppose I've been trying to just get my captains involved and, hey, give this guy something to do. You're working on the robot, give him, some screws to put in some holes. And that's been working pretty well. But I just wondered if you guys had any ideas for just kind of the stragglers who are there, kind of peripheral. You mentioned finding productive things for them to do, but just any ideas you guys might have. I don't know if you guys are dealing with the same type of issue, but that's one thing I noticed for me.
One thing that I've done in the past before, a lot of times I've found that those are the kids who are not willing to really speak up for themselves. They just would rather be like, I don't really care, because no one's involving them. So sometimes I'll have a practice and only have them come, that they're the only ones there to do the work. And so not even the captains are there right now. It's like, okay, what do you guys want to work on in this? And then that way there's no social block of, I have to speak up for myself to get my foot in the door here to get a chance to work on something, that they kind of have some free reign. They still might be so unused to that they still really don't know what to do, because it's like the first time that they've had that. But I have had just like, an extra hour practice every now and then where I only invite those 2 kids or 3 kids, whatever it is, and say, hey, this is your time to work on this, just so that, you got a free reign to get some of this stuff done. So that's one of the things that once we get closer, our practices get more divided. Like might all meet on one day, we'll meet it as a whole team, and then Tuesday it's only this 3 group of people, Wednesday this 3 group of people, Thursday this 3 group of people, and then we'll meet all together again on Friday. And that kind of helps too, because especially if you have some personalities that are not meshing very well, it kind of helps to them not, and it might not even be that they're meshing well. Like you said, sometimes they're just distracting to the others. It sometimes helps to say, well, you 3 show up at a different time than you 3, and then they'll be more productive separately. So that's one thing I've done if I've had that issue. But yeah, and some of that busy work kind of stuff is for my younger kids who really like that stuff. They really like organizing little tiny pieces. And so I wouldn't, if a kid was like, I don't want to do that, I wouldn't force them to do it. I'd say, okay, here's something else. Why don't you make our flyer? Or, what do you want to do to help contribute to the team? So maybe they just need a little free reign or but yeah. Like you said, you don't want to chase them off. You want to have them involved. But at some point, too, it's like, are you being counterproductive to the team, or are you going to be part of the team? So
maybe I do want to chase them off. I don't know.
Yeah. And I've put it in my parent clause and my team clause at the beginning that I have a 3-strike behavior policy. So, and I let parents know, like, if we've had a major issue, that's a strike. Sometimes I'll say, you need to take a break. You're not invited to the next practice, but you can come after that and try again. And if they've had major issues, 3 strikes, and they're not invited to come to the competition anymore, because if it's too counterproductive, everyone's there to work on a team. And if you're not doing it, then yeah. So it's always hard though, because we want them to be there. We want them excited, but at the same point, there's some limits as well. So
do you ever just maybe have them work, like kind of get a JV team going and have them work on their own robot, totally separate from the main team project?
I do know that because I have FLL kids. So I have had it in the past where I've had our older model robot, because they all want to learn how to program. But if we only have one working robot, it's really hard for them all to get that chance. That, yes, I've had sometimes where I just charge up the really old one. I'm like, guys, I don't even know if this works. See if you can make this work. And they're totally into it and they love it. So I've kept all of our old robots and all the old chargers, and we'll bring them out during like our sleepovers or lock-ins too, so they have a chance to play with them. But yeah, it does help sometimes if they can just work on some programming, even just for fun. Like one year they wanted to program, can we get our robot to go all the way down the hallway without running into a wall? And they just did that for like 3 hours straight. They ran it down the hallway because we had an extra robot, and they were super happy about it. And so, yeah, having another extra, especially those FLL bots to program, can keep another group of kids really occupied. And actually, one of our teams here actually has 2 robots, and they built them identical so that everybody can be working on the program for the robot at the same time. So they actually can have 2 programming teams working at the same time, and then they just eventually transfer it all over to the one. But like right now, mid-season, they got 2 different identical robots to practice on. So I know with FTC, that's probably not a real thing, but that would be a lot harder to have 2 FTC bots going at the same time. But yeah. Okay.
Thank you. That was some good information.
Okay. Oh, and then I should have put on here too, I'm gonna put it in the message, but if anybody wants anything else or any other ideas, I can send some more information, but my email is just Erin_Arno@lksd.org. And I'd be happy to send anything else or answer any questions or chat with anybody at another time. So. Okay, Vicki, I think we're
all good to go. No more questions? Okay, then I'll go ahead and close out the call. So if you were going to grab Erin's email address or the link to the contractor's chest, grab that now from the chat. And thank you, Erin. That was awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Erin.
Yep. You guys have a good night.
Yep.